Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Karimi. I'm the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research, and today we have the honor and pleasure of having an information session with Professor Timothy Walker of the History Department. Today, he's going to talk to us about opportunities through the Fulbright scholarship sponsored by the US government. So on this note, I'd like to turn the platform to Professor Walker to tell us a little bit more about this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela Karimi. That was wonderful. And I'm so happy to be here and have the opportunity to talk about this amazing program with UMass Dartmouth students. I'm also very grateful to the Office of Undergraduate Research that is sponsoring this program, and to the various administrative offices that have helped to promote it on campus. So for folks who don't know much about the Fulbright program, I wanted to begin by saying, a little bit about what it is and how it came about. But basically, the idea behind Fulbright was a senator in the United States Senate, and in the aftermath of World War II, it became apparent that there needed to be some sort of soft power policies that drew the world together, and exchanging scholars and students from country to country was a way to do that. So Fulbright is a US government funded project that annually sends hundreds and hundreds of students from the United States to countries around the world to spend 8 or 9 months, typically, working in another country, in another environment. And then it also brings students from other countries and also professors from other countries to the United States to have a experience learning about the US. And through those exchanges, the idea is it brings the world closer together and makes the world a safer place because we know more about each other and we have a better understanding of foreign cultures. So the mission of the Fulbright program is to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge, and improve lives around the world. Fulbright turns 75 years old in 2021, so we've just had the 75th anniversary. It was created, as I said, right after World War II in 1946. It's all paid for, obviously, by US tax dollars, but ultimately it's the Department of State's Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs that runs the program. And then there's this little organization here called IIE, which is the Institute for International Education, and they are the administrators of the Fulbright program. So when you have, if you apply and you have interaction with any of the Fulbright program managers or any of the people who are there to help you out with your application, they'll be at the Institute for International Education. And then overseas, every individual country that has that receives Fulbright scholars and that sends Fulbright scholars, they have in their own country a commission that also helps to administer the program in those individual countries, and also through US embassies. It's important to say from the outset that Fulbright believes in diversity and inclusion, and so the Fulbright program obviously has opportunities open to people regardless of their race and national origin, sex, age, religion, geographic location, socioeconomic status, disability, sexual orientation, and gender identity. That said, the one thing that you do need to be a Fulbright scholar is a US citizen. And so let's look at eligibility. So the people who are eligible for this are folks who have already an undergraduate degree. So you have to have graduated. Typically, if you're going to try to go right after UMass Dartmouth, you would apply in your senior year, in the fall of your senior year. So that means September, October of your senior year. And then the lead time is 1 year in advance. So if you applied, say, in September of 2022, you would be applying to begin your Fulbright Fellowship a year later in the fall of 2023. Typically, that's how it works. So there's a 1 year lead time. Also, graduates, recent graduates, adults, early career professionals, and also graduate students. So if you are enrolled at a US institution, then you have to apply through that institution. So if you're enrolled at UMass Dartmouth, and I'm guessing that most of you are, although some of you have already graduated, you have to apply through UMass Dartmouth. If you're a recent graduate, you can also apply through UMass Dartmouth, and there are some advantages to doing that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Basic eligibility: US citizen, have a bachelor's degree or equivalent. So you shouldn't have a PhD at the time of the start of your application. There's a separate Fulbright program for people who have doctorates. And then you have to meet, and this is the last point on the right, each individual country has its own requirements. And so as you work towards completing your application, one of the things that you will do is you'll choose a single country to apply to, in most cases, although there are some multi-country grants, but you choose a country and then you have to meet their requirements when you make your application. So there are basically two types of awards. On the left, you can see how many awards are awarded each year. 2,150 made each year for US students going abroad, and they can go to over 140 countries. The two types of awards at the top on the right, study and research grants, over 900 awards. These are typically for 6 to 12 months. And in those cases, you come up with a kind of project or maybe some graduate work or some kind of arts project that you want to do abroad. And you design a project, you propose it to the Fulbright program as part of your application. And if they approve you, then you go off and you do that project for 6 to 12 months. The other kind of grant is an English teaching assistantship, where you go overseas for 8 to 10 months and you basically teach English. You work as an English teacher in secondary schools and in universities, and you try to improve the quality of people's English spoken in other parts of the world. And you can do that in about 75 different countries. The benefits of the award: well, no one is going to get rich doing a Fulbright, but it does cover all of your travel and your maintenance costs. So your costs of living and your costs of travel are paid for while you're on the Fulbright grant. So you get round trip airfare, a monthly stipend, and that varies depending on the country that you're in. You get accident and sickness insurance benefits. And depending on the country, there are some other possible benefits you can get. Support for dependents. If you're married or if you have a child, you can get support for them. You might get a special research allowance to cover some of your costs of doing the project that you want to do. In some cases, if you are enrolled at a foreign university as part of your grant, you would get tuition benefit. In some cases, you would get language lessons if you're working in a country where you have some language, but your language skills need to be improved. You might get language lessons. And there are various other things, including disability-related accommodations if you have a disability. And enhancement activities means funding that will help improve the quality of your project or your grant by paying for additional things that will help your experience. So for example, if you're an English teaching assistant in another country, you might get some additional funding to help do projects for the students that you're teaching, and those kinds of things. So that's while you're on the grant. Then there are also benefits that continue after you have the Fulbright grant. There's a Fulbright network of alumni. So once you're a Fulbrighter, you're always a Fulbrighter. You enter into this sort of fraternity, sorority of people who have had Fulbrights, and they network. They're wonderful for career networking and things like that. Or if you are going into a profession in which you want to interact with former Fulbrighters, then that is something that you can do. The State Department maintains an alumni website, making it easy to contact former Fulbrighters, which is something that you might do prior to getting a Fulbright too, by the way, contacting people who maybe held a Fulbright recently in the country that you want to go to, so you can get some inside information about about how to apply and things to look out for when you're making your application. The third thing, you're eligible for 12 months of non-competitive eligibility, hiring status within the federal government. So if you're looking for a US government job, they like to hire Fulbrighters, and they give you a benefit to that 12 months after your Fulbright. You have a lifetime Fulbright email address, which is helpful for networking, and you're a member of the Fulbright Association. So all of these things are super helpful for your careers as you move forward in life. Let's talk about the application. So in terms of making an application to the Fulbright program, it's not a huge application, but it does require that you write a couple of essays that have to be quite detailed and very well written. So the application components are as follows. You have some forms that you fill out. The application is entirely online now. It has moved online for probably the last 6 or 7 years. But so you have forms that you fill out, basic personal data and program information. So you give an abstract of the project that you want to do. You name the host country. You demonstrate that you know a little bit about that country, and you provide some information about your plans after the Fulbright program. So Fulbright is interested in funding people and supporting people who have a clear idea of how the Fulbright fits into their trajectory, into their arc of plans with their life plans. And so they want people who have really considered how the Fulbright can help them in their future plans and endeavors. And that's an important thing to keep in mind as you're planning your Fulbright application. The core of the Fulbright application is essays. That's number 2 there. So you have a statement of grant purpose. And for a research and study project, remember there are 2 kinds of grants, the English teaching one and the research study one. For the research study one, you write a 2-page essay. That's single-spaced, and that is part of your application component. For the English teaching assistantship, it's a 1-page essay. Again, single-spaced, usually 12-point font and 1-inch margins. So it's a fairly short essay. We're talking about maybe 400 words or so, maybe a bit more than that in your essay. The other essay is a personal statement, which is 1 page. And in this personal statement, you talk about yourself, your background, your preparation for the Fulbright, and how the Fulbright would fit into your personal life goals, essentially. Then the third part of the application is more forms, reports and references. So if you're going to a country that is not an English-speaking country and English is not your first language, then you would do a foreign language evaluation. So if you're going to say, I don't know, Mexico on a Fulbright grant, you would need to take a Spanish test and demonstrate that you have some basic Spanish ability. That's not all foreign countries require language. In fact, a lot of them don't require them because they understand that most people in the US don't speak these languages, but many of them do. And if you go to a country where you need to have some language skills, then you have to take a language test. You also need 3 letters of recommendation, 3 references, and those are done online by your referees who write the references for you. The fourth part, you need your university transcripts, demonstrating that you're your level of student achievement. And let me say a word about that. You don't have to have a 4-point GPA to win a Fulbright. They're not looking necessarily at GPAs. They would like people to have a demonstration of academic competence and academic dedication. But if you don't have a perfect GPA, that will not exclude you from getting a Fulbright. You can still do it. The other components of your application are the following. If you're doing a research and study project, then you would need a letter of affiliation in some cases, not in all cases, but in most cases, you would be looking for a place where you would be affiliated when you are in the foreign country. And that could be a university, it could be an archive, it could be an art school or some kind of institution that will sort of be your base of operations when you go there. And so as you start putting together your Fulbright application, if you need that affiliation, then you need to start reaching out to other countries and finding places where you can affiliate. And that's a place, by the way, this is a matter in which former Fulbrighters who have been in that country can advise you about places to contact to make an affiliation. If you're applying in the arts, let's say you're a painter or a sculptor and you want to go overseas to pursue an art project, then you would submit a portfolio demonstrating your skill as an artist, and those supplementary materials would be part of your application. So let's carry on. By the way, I'm going to, if you have questions about any of this, just jot down the question and I will answer them at the end of the presentation. So what are some of the factors in the selection process? If you are doing a grant that requires a project, then they'll be looking at the quality and the feasibility of your project proposal. Does it make sense within the time frame? Will you have the resources that you need to do it? So as you're putting together a project, you will need to think carefully about what you need to actually achieve your goals in the other country. This is not something you need to do for a English teaching assistantship, because in most cases you will be assigned to a school where you will become a assistant teacher, usually working in collaboration with other English teachers in the school who are there permanently. So you don't have to do a proposal of your quality and feasibility when you're putting together a teaching assistantship application. Other factors in selection are your academic or professional record. So again, they want solid, good students. Doesn't have to be a perfect GPA record, but they want people who have high or generally solid GPAs. Personal qualifications, this would include extracurricular things that you may have done to show your dedication and your skill as a person, maybe your work record. Sometimes people, if you work a job outside of school, sometimes people use a manager's recommendation as one of their 3 recommendations, just to say something about, being a good, dedicated, reliable worker and that kind of thing. If you're going to a place where you need language preparation, you need to demonstrate. So you have to score reasonably well on a language exam if you're going to a place that requires a language exam. Preference factors as established by Fulbright Scholarship Board. So this refers to scholarship boards in other countries, and the individual countries have criteria that they set up. The extent to which the candidate and the project will help advance the Fulbright program goals. So they want, if you think back to the founding purposes of the Fulbright grant, they want to see evidence in your essays that you are aware of and you want to help fulfill the reasons that the Fulbright exists. The Fulbright exists to create bridges between cultures and countries. And so you want to demonstrate that as you are writing your essays, that you're also dedicated to that ideal and that goal. Also, the Fulbright, one of the factors in selection is a desirability of achieving diversity. So they're looking at a broad diversity of candidates, and so that is a factor in selection. The application timeline, oops, going back. So there are 2 deadlines to keep in mind. Beginning now in April, from April to September, is when you start to think about your application and writing it. I would actually say April to August is when you need to do that, because the internal deadline for UMass Dartmouth is the 1st of September every year. And so at that point, you need to have, because you will be applying through UMass Dartmouth, there is an internal process of selection as well. And essentially, myself and other Fulbright scholars on campus, professors and members of staff, our job is to do a kind of pre-selection process, but also to help you produce the best application that you can. We want UMass Dartmouth students to get these grants. And so a part of my job as the Fulbright Program Advisor and Fulbright Program Administrator is to help you to write your essays, to help you to answer questions about the application process, but also to help you get through it and produce the best application that you can. And so if you look at the next line, the national application deadline is the 11th of October. But more than a month in advance, the internal process begins, where you submit your application materials to me, and then we work through and polish them and get them ready for the national application deadline. You'll also have an on-campus interview with the Fulbright Committee, and the Fulbright Committee then supplies an additional letter of recommendation based on the interview that you have on campus. So if you are already graduated from UMass Dartmouth, and yet you want to apply through UMass Dartmouth, and you're not enrolled at any other university, then if you're a graduate, you can apply through UMass Dartmouth. And the benefit of doing that is that you get help from me in producing your application, help from the Fulbright Committee on campus to help you polish that application, and you get the additional letter of recommendation. So it's actually a benefit to apply through UMass Dartmouth if you can. But if you're enrolled in any other institution at the time of application, October of 2022, then you have to apply through that institution that you're enrolled in. So the applications go in at the national level on October 11th. Then in November and December, there is a national screening committee in the United States that selects finalists. Then those finalists are forwarded in January, from January to May of the following year. They're forwarded to Fulbright commissions in the individual host countries and through the US Embassy in those host countries. And they make a final selection, which then is announced in March through June of the following year. So you will find out if you apply in 2022, in the fall, in October, you'll find out in March of 2023 or April or May, typically, almost never in June. But anyway, you'll find out in the spring of the following year, and then you would start the award in the fall of that year, so fall of 2023. So I want to talk now, those are the basic nuts and bolts of the project. The competition is going to open in early April, so you actually can't start your application yet. They're going to open the applications in just a few days at the beginning of April. The national deadline is October 11th, 2022. There's a little asterisk there for two reasons. One is you have to remember the internal UMass Dartmouth deadline, which is the 1st of September, but also that national deadline might change by a few days. I'm not 100% sure, but when they announce the program in April, when it becomes live on their website, then they'll tell you the deadline date. So I wrote to the advisor yesterday, the national advisor, to find out when the deadline was, and she told me October 11th. So I believe her, but it could still possibly change. All right, so what's happening in 2022? Well, there's been a slight reduction in awards worldwide by 4%, in part because of instability in the world, having to do with Ukraine and various other things. So the number of awards has gone down a little bit, but there's still a broad availability. 2,000 grants probably are going to be awarded. There is a hiatus of one program called Fulbright Fogarty, which we're not going to talk about. There's going to be some additional standardization of award descriptions across various countries. And then they've really upped their online game. So you've got some better materials available to you online with search options, and TESOL, Teaching English as a Secondary Language Fundamentals course that you can take if you're going to be an ETA, an English teaching assistant. They're going to give you some online training about TESOL, which means Teaching English as a Second Language. So let's look at various regions of the world and talk about some of the awards that are available. In Europe, you have the possibility of having some multi-country awards. So you don't choose just a single country, but you can go to more than one country. So there are multi-country awards for Bulgaria, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, Turkey, And that's, these are fascinating because these are regions that have countries where their histories are very closely linked. And if you wanted to do some comparative work, you could do that with these multi-country awards. Also, Denmark has an Open Study Research Award that you can find out more about on their website, on the Fulbright website. And by the way, the Fulbright website has individual pages for each of the countries, so you can read more about their individual awards. So when you go to the Fulbright website, that it'll show you how to get to the various individual country pages. Spain has a new award, the Fulbright IE University Award for a master's degree in international relations or in international development. And so if you're interested in pursuing a master's degree, there are several countries across the Fulbright options that allow you to enroll in a master's program for either typically 1 year, and that can be paid for by a Fulbright grant. Greenland now has grants available for 10 months, so you can go for longer in Greenland if you want to go there. Finland has, they're encouraging PhDs and people in the arts to apply, and Germany has some new changes to their program as well. In the UK, there are some specific awards that we can highlight. There's a master's degree at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and Loughborough University also has a PhD program that wants Fulbrights to apply to. University of Leeds, and in Italy, the foundation, the Falcone Foundation, Fondazione Falcone, has an award in criminology. So that's something that people might want to apply for. I think the instruction in that program is in English, and so I don't believe they require Italian language, but that you might need to check on that. So let's look at some other regions in the world. Eurasia, regional trends. There is an increase in a number of English teaching awards in Georgia, the country of Georgia. CLEA, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that's only available in Russia. Now, I will hasten to say that the events of the last month have thrown these things into question. So the Fulbright program in Ukraine, I imagine, is suspended, and probably in Russia too, but I'm not 100% sure of that. So you'll need to watch the news and the Fulbright website to see what they're doing about the current war in Ukraine. But there are opportunities in other regions of Eurasia, including Armenia and Georgia. We had, by the way, a UMass Dartmouth student a few years ago who went to Georgia as an English teacher and just loved it. She thought it was an extraordinary experience, and it really shaped her life. She works for Google now, and she was a graduate of UMass Dartmouth about 8 years ago, I guess. East Asia Pacific, regional trends. More study and research applications are needed, and particularly in arts. And they need English teaching assistantship applicants who must demonstrate a sincere interest in teaching in the host country. Taiwan and Korea have some updates that are available on their website. And some of the undersubscribed programs are study and research in Brunei, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Thailand. Let me say something about undersubscribed programs. If it says undersubscribed, that means they're not getting enough applicants, meaning that the competition within the country is less. And so as you think about where you want to apply, you can think strategically about applying to countries that have fewer applicants. It's almost impossible to get a Fulbright grant to the United Kingdom, to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, because everybody wants to go there. And it's really hard to get Fulbrights in Italy, for example, because everybody wants to go there. But there are lots of opportunities in other countries that are less, let's say, popular, but I wouldn't say less desirable. It's just that people don't know enough about those places, but they can be fascinating places to go and study. So as you're thinking about where you might want to go, think strategically about countries that have that are identified as undersubscribed. They need more English teaching assistants in Laos, Malaysia, and Mongolia. And there are graduate degree grants in Korea and Taiwan that are available. So East Asia Pacific. South Asia and Central Asia. Undersubscribed programs in Sri Lanka, that's that island nation next to India, which was historically the source of cinnamon. It's an amazing place with a very mixed culture. Also in Kyrgyzstan, probably English teaching is desirable there. Regional trends across South Asia: increased number of ETAs to Uzbekistan and ETA programs to Sri Lanka will continue. Oh, those are suspended for 22-23. I'm not sure why, but maybe because they're getting a lot of English teaching from India or other places in South Asia. I don't know. Sub-Saharan Africa, regional notes and highlights. Applicant interest in ETA programs remains strong overall, despite a decrease in applications to Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, and Rwanda. New eligibility requirements for Tanzania. Applicants must be enrolled in a graduate program at the start of the grant term. Undersubscribed programs: Eswatini, Guinea, Lesotho, Mozambique, Republic of Congo, and Togo. If you're a Portuguese speaker, I know some of us at UMass Dartmouth come from Portuguese backgrounds, but I have visited Mozambique. It's a magnificent country. And if you have some Portuguese, you might want to think about applying to Mozambique because they need English teachers and other grants there. Middle East and North Africa. There are increased interest in Egypt since the program resumed in 2019. The most competitive awards are to Palestinian territories, Israel, Morocco, and Jordan. So a lot of people want to go to those places, and competition is high. Jordan's ETA program now requires you to speak a bit of Arabic when you go. And let me say something about that. If you don't speak a language at all right now, and at a country where you want to go, you can improve your chances of getting an award by demonstrating that you're dedicated to the idea of doing this grant by taking language classes between now and the time when you would be selected to go, or between now and the time that you apply. So if you started to do some, let's say, Rosetta Stone intensive online study of Arabic between now and September when you apply, or October, you might be able to actually demonstrate on a language exam that, hey, you've got some good language skills that are the basics that you would need. So if you don't happen to speak the language that you want for your application now is the time to start working on that in all of your free time that you may or may not have. Okay, let's look at other places. Western Hemisphere. So this is countries that are Portuguese and French and Spanish speaking in the Western Hemisphere. So a lot of awards have increased their application numbers in places like Ecuador and Honduras and Peru, all of which need English teaching assistance. Chile has a science initiative that will be described on the Chile page of the Fulbright website. These places saw significant decreases in applications. So where do they need people? Honduras, Paraguay, and Guatemala all need English teaching assistance. And then the study research grants, SR grants, in El Salvador, Guatemala, Paraguay, across Mexico. So the COMEXIS Public Policy Initiative, I believe, is in Mexico, and then Chile Science Initiative. So there's a lot of opportunities in the Western Hemisphere as well. Many of these places require some Spanish, and in Brazil, they require you to have some Portuguese to be an ETA. Something that happened a few years ago when Brazil hosted the World Cup and the Olympics in the same year. About 2 years before that happened, Brazil had a kind of freak out moment when they realized they really needed more people who spoke English. And so they doubled the number of Fulbright ETAs to go to Brazil. And I don't believe they've ever really come down a lot. There are a lot of possibilities to be an ETA in Brazil. And we have had 2 UMass Dartmouth students over the last 10 years who have gone to Brazil as ETAs, and they had magnificent experiences. Okay. A couple of other points quickly. There are some specific scholarships that Fulbright also offers. One of them is the Storytelling Fellowship from the National Geographic. And this is a kind of unique award in which candidates are selected to work with National Geographic's personnel to learn about the things that National Geographic does. Video storytelling, journalism, on-site, in-depth documentary journalism of the oceans, of wildlife, and things like that, anthropological studies of human history and culture. This is a very popular award. It is highly competitive, but you should read about it if it interests you and think about making an application. And so I think there are just a couple of these available every year, but it's always a very popular award for applicants. Another component of the Fulbright Award system is that if you apply to go to a country in which the United States government has decided that the language spoken in that country is critical for US security and diplomacy, you can also apply for additional money called the Critical Language Enhancement Award. And this gives you 3 to 6 months of intensive language study prior to the start of your Fulbright, which is concurrent with research grant or combination as an enhancement to the Fulbright grant. So this is an amazing opportunity if you're interested in learning Arabic, any of the languages in India that are in the program, so Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Urdu, Bengali, Indonesia, Arabic from Jordan, Arabic from Morocco, or Russian. At the end of the Cold War, a lot of Russian programs stopped teaching Russian, and so the US has lost a lot of its capacity to have Russian speakers, and we really need them. And so, and that's true for many of these other languages as well, particularly Arabic. And so if you're interested in learning any of these languages, you can apply for a Critical Language Enhancement Award if it works with the grant or the project that you have in mind for Fulbright. Resources. So I'll direct your attention to where it says applicants on the right. If you go to the Fulbright website, there are tutorial videos to teach you how to do an application. You can search for various awards. There are regional office hours by the Fulbright program officers where you can do a Zoom office hour meeting, or you can do it by not text, but by chat online. And then there are applicant webinars that are available in a variety of subjects, including a general program overview. That's kind of what this is right now. Select some advice in how to select your award type, an introduction to the English Teaching Association Award, an introduction to the Study Research Awards, graduate degree awards, and then for artists, also there are webinars. So these are happening in early April. You see the dates there. You might want to write them down, but they'll be on the Fulbright website as well. And these would be useful to you as you start to plan your application. Finally, the Fulbright program, the main website you need to remember is this one here. Watch our webinars at usfulbrightonline.org. That's Fulbright Online for students, graduate students and undergraduates, is the main website through which all of this other information can be accessed. They have an email now, FB student, so Fulbright student at iie.org. Then they have the website there to learn all about the various countries that you would apply to. And you can watch the videos also at Vimeo that has its dedicated Fulbright channel. The other, of course, contact and resource person is me, and I'm available on campus. You can meet with me during office hours or by Zoom, and I'll help you with any questions that you have about the Fulbright program. So it's about 10:40 right now, a little bit after. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop. First, I want to say thank you in multiple languages, and then I'm going to stop the share and I'll answer any questions that you may have. So thank you for your attention, and let's hear what sort of questions you might have about this subject. Don't be shy.
Thank you, Professor Walker. This was an amazing introduction to the Fulbright program. Thank you so much for covering so many subjects. I would like to give the platform to students to ask questions, but perhaps they're contemplating their questions now. I wanted to ask you, Professor Walker, because there are some science majors here in this room. Could you please talk a little bit about these students? What kind of opportunities are available out there? For example, the opportunity in Greenland, is it possible for scientists to go there and do their research there? And if so, what kind of background do they need in order to prove that they're a good applicant for that part of the world?
Right, that's a great question. So for people in the hard sciences, Fulbright is definitely open to you. They want to promote STEM research and STEM fields. But you would be then applying almost certainly for one of those SR grants, study research grants. And depending on the level that you are as a student, if you're already an enrolled grad student and you want to go overseas to do research that would support, say, your master's degree or your PhD, then you can do that and you apply. I was not in sciences, but I did do a Fulbright to do my PhD research in Portugal, and I was awarded a Fulbright. So I went over there to do my doctoral research. You can do the same in sciences, but it would probably mean that you would need to develop an affiliation with a regional lab or a regional institution that then you would be affiliated with as you do your project overseas. Depending on what your research is like, if it's very much lab-based, then you would need to have the affiliation so that you could use lab resources in the country that you want to go to. But if you're doing field research and you're doing something that that requires you to be out in the field, you would describe that in your project essay, and then you would get letters of recommendation that supported your ability to do that, and you would get an affiliation letter from the people with whom you want to work in the other country that would support the project that you've designed and say that they support what you want to do. So it's definitely possible. It happens every year, and but it requires a bit more, let's say, preparation to get all your to get all the components lined up to make sure that you can do what you want to do in the time that you would have to do it and with the resources that you would have. What Fulbright won't fund is, say, very expensive research equipment or processes that are going to be very costly or time consuming. You have to design a project that can be done within the 8 or 9 or 10 months of a Fulbright program. I see
Thank
a question.
you, Professor Walker. Yeah, there are some questions in the chat box. Feel free to read them and answer them if you feel comfortable. If not, I can do that too.
So Jessica asks, for the research study option, can you apply multiple times or only once? So you can apply to only one country per cycle, per year. So you can apply multiple times to the Fulbright. And in fact, a lot of people who don't make it through on the first time will apply the following year or at a later time. So you can apply as many times as you want until you get it, but you have to choose only one country or one grant in case it's a multi-country grant. You can only apply to one grant per year, per cycle.
Professor Walker, Lilia also has a question. She says, I'm an immigrant from Moldova and speak both Romanian and Russian. Am I eligible to apply? In other words, apply to work/study in Moldova?
Yes, if you are now a US citizen. If you've naturalized and are a US citizen, then you can apply. My wife, who is Portuguese born and is a dual citizen, she naturalized as a US citizen, and then she became a Fulbrighter in Portugal after she was a US citizen. So that is possible, and but you have to be US citizen at the time of application. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, I think I will wrap up our session, and thank you for your attention. My email is easily available. It's twalker@umassd.edu. I'm in the history department and I keep office hours every week. So if there are further questions, or if you want to talk to me about this and you're interested in applying, remember that September 1st deadline. You should be working on your essays through the spring and summer. I'm happy to correspond with you about that or talk with you about that. We can do Zoom meetings if you like. And so please be in touch and let me know what you're thinking. And I look forward to working with you if you choose to apply.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Walker. This was extremely helpful, and I hope that our students consider applying for this great opportunity. And please know that many UMass Dartmouth students, including the ones that Professor Walker mentioned, as well as some that I know from the CVPA, have gotten this award to go to other countries to do their art projects or their research. So it's a great opportunity. Don't miss it. It can be a beautiful thing on your resume and can help you become more successful in the future. So on this note, Professor Walker, I thank you once again. I'm going to stop recording now. And we will take a little break before we start another session exactly at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Thank you.